Meeting to order.
Recording in progress.
Calling the meeting to order at 7:01. The first order of business is the flag salute. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so we did want to get a council picture, but that would be great tonight. So we'll keep it on the agenda until everybody is here, and then we'll get a picture. Okay, roll call.
Okay, Miss Bollenbacher. I think she might be online, so I'll ask
Oh,
at the
there we
end
go.
again. Mr. Chandler,
Here.
Miss Compatello,
Here.
Mr. Huff,
Here.
oof, excuse me.
Oh.
Mr. Oliveria,
Here.
Miss Pokalnik,
Here.
Mr. Radilla. You online? No, it doesn't appear so. Oh, if you click over to that, click over to the panelist. Oh, that's us. Okay, that's okay.
Do you have to promote them?
Yeah, we will once they get in, but it doesn't look like they're in. Corbel's in, but okay. We can look at it again. Mayor Perry here. Solicitor Corbel, I see that you are listening in online. Engineer Minsterman.
Here.
And myself, and I'm going to go back to Miss Bollenbacher. Are you online, Miss Bollenbacher?
Oh, she raised a hand.
Oh, she did. Okay. Can you promote? You can promote. Is it not in the? Okay.
And also Steve. You have to promote Steve too.
Great.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Ah,
Yes.
perfect.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Steve, can you talk?
If he's calling on his phone, he has
Thank
to.
you, I'm here.
Great.
Perfect.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, with that, we have a quorum.
Great. The consent agenda. So the council meeting minutes from January 2nd, which was the reorg meeting, and also the last meeting, which was December 14th, the last council meeting, and the bill list from January 11th of 2023. I'd like to remove the Northwest EMS bill out of the bill list. And with that, having a motion to approve the January 11th, 2024 consent agenda minus the Northwest EMS.
So moved.
Mr. Chandler,
Second.
Ms. Compatello, any discussion or questions? Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. At this time, citizens may address the Crafton Borough Council on any issue appearing on today's agenda. Only residents and taxpayers of the Borough of Crafton will be permitted to address the council. Comments on non-agenda items will be taken at the end of tonight's meeting. Speakers will be permitted to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Groups of people will be required to designate a spokesperson to represent them before council, who may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Please state your name and physical address for the record. So we have one person, Greta, I can't read the last name. Carlin, okay. Yeah, you can just come right up there. And just state your name and address.
Okay, my name is Gladys Carlin. I live at 10 Afton Avenue. And I'm concerned about the gates being locked and closed for the wintertime because if there's snow on the road and the borough crew does not come, we cannot make it up Richmond. We have to back up if the car comes down around the corner and restart back up from Steuben again. And also too, if there is a fire like there was in 2010, the gates were closed, but at that time were not bolted shut. The one of the residents from Belvedere opened the gates so the fire engines could come up from Moon Run on Steubenville Pike, because my neighbor's house caught on fire, or they came up Duncan onto Afton. And I almost lost my house too, because my neighbor's house was on fire. And I'm really concerned, because it's scary at times, and you can't, really get off and on sometimes the street. And I lived there since 1955, so I've seen a lot of happenings from there over the years. I'm just like to have it open from maybe November 1st to May 1st, because right now there is no activity in the park, and the kids that are there are usually there with their parents. Or in the summertime, the parents take off and drop off the kids. I can see why. So I like to have it open for the winter if we could, for safety factors and whatever else. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. And it is on the agenda, so we will be discussing it today. Thank you so much. So that's all we have on the list. Anybody online, if you can raise your hand online, and we will open it to speak. All right. The first is the president's report. And tonight I'd like to report that we did, with the change and the addition of Mike, and also Justin leaving and being a new year, we did change some of the council committees, and we'll go through some of those today. But basically, the finance and administration, we added sustainability to that, the title of that committee, and Ms. Perry will lead that committee again this year. The community services and infrastructures name was changed to infrastructures and land use, and also Ms. Compatello will lead that committee this year. Communications, recreation, and community events, we shortened that title to be communication and recreation, and Ms. Bolenbacher will lead that committee again this year. And the commission vacancy, Ms. Bolkownik will step in as the leader of that committee. And our representative for the Council of Government will be Ms. Bolenbacher again this year, and Ms. Perry as her backup. So we will go through the same type of reporting. There was a request to add the Planning Commission and the details that are going through the Planning Commission, and Mr. Rodilla is on the Planning Commission, so he will be able to report at our council meetings also. All right. So that's all for my report. Next is the mayor's report.
Nothing to report this evening.
All right, thank you. Solicitor's report. Mr. Corbel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just one item to report on, and that is the zoning hearing board meeting to announce the decision in the variance request for Mr. Greiner has been scheduled for next Thursday, January 18th at 7 p.m. It will be in this room, and again, there will be no testimony, no evidence. It's just a meeting for the zoning board to discuss and announce its decision. Mr. Greiner, we originally had an extension till the end of last December. And based on schedules, we weren't able to find a date that worked for everyone. So he executed a new extension till the end of January. So this falls within that, and hopefully all goes as planned, and the zoning board issues a decision next Thursday. That's all I have, unless anybody has a question. Okay, thank you.
Did you want to also announce about the executive session this evening?
Oh, yeah, we will have an executive session, I believe, at the conclusion of the meeting to discuss personnel matters. And that is the end of my report.
All right. Thank you. Engineers report.
Hey, good evening. First item on the engineer's report is regarding the C20 and C25 sewer shed projects for the Borough. All of you have in front of you, some packages of maps and charts and project layouts. If you could pull those in front of you as we go through this. So. Okay, so as mentioned, the two CSOs that we are talking about are the C20 and the O39J that are located here in Crafton. And this presentation will pretty much go over the preliminary projects that have been selected for choice. Just to do a quick recap on these projects and some background information. First and foremost, as mentioned in previous meetings, we are required to meet Alcosan's consent order. And what does that mean? That means that we are required to capture 85% of the flow sent to Alcosan's system. And who else to comply to that? Well, every community within Alcosan's sewer service area. And does that include Crafton? Yes, Crafton has a complete combined sewer network that is serviced by Alcosan. And in this meeting and the projects that are being presented are in regards to CSOs C20 and O39J, which are the target outfalls. Some more information about where we are at and how we get here today. First, we had to analyze sewer sheds and determine where projects could go within these CSO sewer sheds. Next was to design some preliminary projects, see what can be done and where. After these projects were designed preliminarily, they have been presented to the engineering committee and here tonight for the council. On top of that, there have been some further investigations, price estimates have been generated, and some preliminary decisions have been made, which we are presenting tonight. These options have also been presented to Alcosan to get their feedback. And as a result from those meetings, we have received full cooperation and all positive feedback from Tim Prevost. And lastly, where we are today, we are currently proposing 2 large projects. Only one needs to be picked in the final, and 5 small projects as well. The first large project overview in the C20 CSO sewer shed is along Duncan Avenue, where the idea is to divert flow from 7 inlets located on Steuben Street, and then to redirect that storm flow up Duncan, and then tie into the existing collector located on Maxwell Street. The roads that will be primarily affected are Duncan and East Steuben Street. The second large project description is a proposed storm tank to be located in the Jason West ball field. And what this project entails is the collection of 7 inlets located in that vicinity, diverting that flow to the proposed storm tank, and then allowing that water to drain out over time rather than go directly into the sewer system. And then the water from that tank will be tied back into the existing sewer that is shown in the light blue line. With the large projects gone over, we'll move on to the small projects. First is just the location map of all the proposed small project locations that are highlighted in yellow. Moving on to further description of each one. First, the first small project being presented is located on Crafton Avenue, which is going to be a green infrastructure project, which entails the collection of water and allowing it time to infiltrate into the ground before it is discharged back into the existing sewer system. And it's important to note that this is one of the projects that offers the most reduction out of the small projects. The next set of projects include on Paper Street in Steuben, a water separation, which involves the use of tanks and water detention and discharge over time. The next three proposed projects are located on Noble Avenue, Lincoln Avenue, and Richmond Street. These projects are all being presented as green infrastructure, which will again collect water and detain it over time to allow for infiltration and before being discharged back into the sewer. And next we'll go into more detail about the costs and the effect that these will have on the system. On this chart here, it's most important to look at the number bordered in red. This is the number of water in millions of gallons per year that we have to remove and capture from the existing system. And then below that, in the large project scenario table, you'll see columns for each of the projects that were discussed, focusing mainly on the ones in yellow. And you'll see as you go down the column, the name of the project, and then the reduction and overflow, millions of gallons, the cost per project, and then the collection of small projects that go along with it, the amount of overflow that they include, then their costs. And then at the third from the bottom row, you'll see the number's 4.82. That's showing that we comply with the number that is required above highlighted in red. And below that, we have a table showing the small projects that were presented, the ones in green. As you can see, these were the 5 projects that were the least expensive, but had the most effectiveness in removal. Move on to the next CSO project or area of focus.
Let's stop.
Let's
on
maybe
that.
pause
Yeah,
there.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Questions on this?
And I'll just add, this has been brought up in a couple of meetings back in December for council, just to let us know that we were going to be having this presentation in January. So this is a continuation of that same project that we had told you about in December. We know that we've been talking a lot about the consent decree for a number of years now and finished up some big projects and have been talking about the Broadhead project for this year. But this is the next step that we need to start thinking about now and positioning, getting ready to identify which projects we'll be targeting next year. So take any questions. Just wanted to, be clear that this is the same thing we were talking about in December.
Two things I wanted to see. On this chart, you can see there's 1A, 1B, and 2. And why was 1B not chosen? If we can explain why it was not chosen.
So 1B was the same situation as 1A, where we would take the water off of Steuben and take it up to Maxwell. However, 1B was more focused on the sewer outside of the cartway and on the existing sewer behind people's properties. And it came to realization that this sewer, replacing it, would require the removal of a bunch of trees that are currently existing behind these people's homes. And we found it best to avoid that scenario.
It would also take a lot of access to people's property that adds time and effort and disruption to them and delays for us. So that was also the reason why 1A, which focuses on doing this project, pretty much the same project between 1A and 1B, but putting it in our publicly owned property was the better approach.
And the funding for the project. So do you want to discuss a little bit about how the funding works, either Larry or Rick?
So, the goal and one of the biggest deadlines is to take the project that you select and turn it into an application for the Alcosan Grow project, grant project. And in the past, you've received, 85% of the cost of these projects, of the eligible cost. Now, the eligible costs have changed a little, but not too much. So that is the bulk of the financing, the funding for the project is the anticipation of the 85% grant match. The application's due in June of this year, and they're going to require a 90% design completion in order to make the application. So that's the reason for getting approval tonight, to find out, you know, if council is in favor with moving ahead with these projects, committing the funds, which would be 15% of the selected alternative. And as far as using the funding that you have, I don't know where that funding's coming from yet, but those, you know, 85 cents on the dollar is one heck of a grant opportunity.
Right, so we would be looking at paying 15% of this cost at the end, and we do have some time to work that into our budget for the following year, as well as some grant funding that we've received beyond what we were anticipating. So
Yeah.
all things that we'll have time to continue working out, but we are looking today at reviewing these two scenarios for two possible approaches to a larger project, and then 5 smaller projects, and council has in front of them and on the screen. If anyone's watching online, you can see those smaller projects. There are 8 different options, but there are 5 that have been identified as the priority, preferred top 5 that would get the biggest impact for the lowest cost. Those would be the options that the engineer would be prioritizing moving forward, but we won't have exact designs or exact decisions or more refined costs until we authorize them to do that next level of refining the design.
And to be clear, it's either 1A or 2. It's not both of those projects, and then the small projects in addition to those. So the goal is to design and propose both of them with the potential to get 2, which is more money, but also a very favorable one because it has other effects around the ball field area. And but either option is a good option, submitting those in and then getting the grant. And we have already met with Alcosan to discuss these projects.
Just to be clear, what we discussed in the infrastructure committee was that we would like council to approve the engineer to be able to explore these 2 options, but they would be refining option 1A. Unless, as they start refining it, they realize that it is not working as well as they thought. And then we would like to allow them the opportunity to go on to option 2 without coming back to council. So we'd like to authorize them to explore 1A with 2 as a backup, not to fully design both without needing both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The rainwater tank, I assume, is underground.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, it's important to note again that these projects are preliminary and are conceptual still, and further design will get them into the place they need to be. But moving on to the next sewer shed in the presentation. CSO 039J, which lies within Crafton and the city of Pittsburgh and is being shared. As a due diligence, Crafton is still required to reduce a 10% reduction at this CSO in order to meet compliance. In order to meet this compliance, some small projects have been presented. Option 1 being the least expensive and least invasive. It is simply to contact with PWSA and have them update their CSO to be, and the weir to be modified so that it retains more water. And as a second option is to separate inlets on Baldwick and divert that water down to an end wall through Steen Street. the summary table with these two different project options. See the cost for the diversion of the outlet structure versus the sewer method.
Can you mention what a weir is for those who might not know?
Sure. So a weir is simply an outlet for water to go through in a outlet structure, which is typically located at the end of a storm sewer. Does that help?
Yeah, and what does it do and what are we asking them to do in PWSA?
So the weir currently allows for water to overflow the structure once the water level gets too high. And what we are proposing for PWSA to do is to take that weir and simply elevate it 0.14 more feet so that it retains more water before going into the system.
And
where is this? Where?
The weir is located in the outlet structure, which on this slide here, where the end wall is proposed, the outlet structure is right in that vicinity.
That's at the bottom, so that's Baldwin Street, and then it's in Pittsburgh. So the outlet is actually in the city of Pittsburgh. What's the road that goes down?
That's Steen Street.
What's that called? It has two different names.
Sorry, I can't hear whoever's talking.
That's me. We're talking about where this is. This is on Baldwick Street, where that road comes off of Baldwick Street as you're headed out of Crafton on the right-hand side and goes down into the valley by the run. And it actually has two different names.
it is Steen
Steen.
and Pensdale.
Thank you. Steen and Pensdale are the name of that.
I think it's Pensdale when it's up on Crafton Boulevard and Steen when it's on Baldwick.
I think it's the opposite, at least according to Google Maps,
Oh,
but
okay.
but this is closer to where you live, Mayor. This is the area in question where this project occurs is down Baldwick Road into the city of Pittsburgh on the city side. But it is capturing water that is in our catch zone, so we're responsible for contributing to the reduction. And obviously our preference is to focus on that first option first and foremost. It requires some decisions from Alcoasand and the city that we can't guarantee, but that's definitely our approach, is to focus on that one first. And do everything we can to see if that is a feasible option. And if that's not going to get the approvals that are needed, then we would have to go on to the other options.
So is there some serious thought that this could work given the poor conditions of that road and that area?
I think that's a question for Pittsburgh, right? If Pittsburgh wants it or doesn't want it at the bottom of that hill. Because we have to go to Pittsburgh and ask them.
No, I get that,
Yeah.
but have our engineers have we looked at that area?
Talking
And
about the condition of the road itself,
the condition of the road and its lack of elevation, that general area already floods a tremendous amount. The whole area is in really poor condition. I would think that that's just from somebody who lives around the corner.
I think what the first project will do is actually create less water down there because it's slowing down the stormwater as it's coming in. And the other one, both of these are actually removing water from that outflow.
So we're talking about one of these three or all three of these?
Primarily, well, go ahead.
We're either talking about the first option or the second two are the same option, but just different methods of getting the water down there. One is through the roadway, the other is through the yards of people's properties.
We would do one of these. And obviously there's a huge cost difference. We would prefer to do the first one. But because this is not actually in our boundaries, we have some negotiations to do, to partnerships to work out. And hopefully those are successful. We do have a responsibility to reduce our flow within this area, but we are a very small portion of it. So yeah, Pittsburgh has to look at this too. They have most of the responsibility for that area.
And this is the last sewer project, correct? For Crafton.
For this 10 years, right?
Hopefully for a long
Well, it
time.
took them 25 years to make it happen last time, so let's hope it takes them that long to do it again.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, be right. If you make the 85% capture at all the overflow points with the projects that you're proposing, you'll be done.
Mhm.
I mean, there's no guarantee, these are being modeled and proposed and there'll be post monitoring after the projects to see their level of performance. And then we'll know at that point, if we hit the target. So in some cases, we're going to go over the target, but some of them are right at 85%. So we don't want to over design it to 90, hoping that we get 86, right? So we're designing to what the requirements are.
So can I ask another question to pinpoint this 39J? Because I'm not quite sure where it is either.
So if you look at the map that he's showing right there, you have CSO 39E 1001 starts at the beginning of Baldwick and goes to about where the houses on the Crafton side of Baldwick stop. And then the other CSO outflow that's there is 039J001 is the one that we're actually looking at and addressing. And that starts at those where the houses basically stop and goes into Pittsburgh by about a couple hundred yards.
Right, so what we're saying is that we've got water coming off of Crafton proper, Baldwick
Right there.
and Bradford Courts essentially, which they're the high ones that are coming down to 39J. And we're responsible for stopping some of that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
This is the borough boundary line too. If you see the red line, so this is Steen right here. So you see how it's just outside of your boundary, but you're capturing this and controlling this water right here. And this side of the line is the city of Pittsburgh's portion of 39J. This side of the boundary line is yours.
So basically, this is your fault here, that we having to do this.
Totally.
Any additional questions from council? All right.
That concludes the presentation for the CSO projects being presented for C20 and 039J.
So at this point, you want to call for a motion.
Motion to approve the proposed projects.
And if you want to read it, yeah, call.
Next
You
page.
can't make the motion, but you can call for the motion.
Next page, next page.
Motion to approve the engineers to move forward with the design work for the proposed projects in the C20 and C25 sewer sheds.
So moved.
Ms. Comptello,
Second.
Ms. Polkownik, discussion, questions?
But does that also include the C39 that we've just been talking about?
Yes, we were using different nomenclature. The C39 outflow is part of the C25 CSO.
Thank you for that clarification.
Any additional questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
In addition to this discussion, I'd like to thanks to the efforts of Senator Fontana and Representative Deasy, Crafton received an additional grant of $2.3 million from the Commonwealth for the Broadhead project. Thanks.
Just like to add, that was more than we were expecting. So we are very happy. We're very grateful and thankful for that additional funding. Thanks to Senator Fontana and Representative Deasy. But also this puts us in a position to be able to think about how we can, we'll be spending less than we thought, and we'll have the ability to think about what we'd like to do next moving forward. Just to share with this council that was extra funding that we were not expecting.
Mhm.
Moving on to the next item on the,
Can you talk about the easements on Broadhead?
okay, yeah, the easements on the Broadhead project are, they're ongoing. We did receive, written and verbal notifications that 2 of them were being mailed, signed and mailed to us, but, to my knowledge, we have not received those yet. 2 of the easements are being looked at due to some legal responses. And the 5th easement is still being discussed with the property owner, but is moving forward. Moving on to the next item on the engineer's report is the Public Works Building. The newest news with that is that we have been selected by Pitt to be part of one of their sustainability class projects, where we will be working directly with some of their students and discussing our Public Works Building project and ways that they can look into helping us figure out how to make it more sustainable and more efficient throughout its life cycle. And we have also received a grant extension for $200,000 until June of this year. Or on this Tuesday, we received that. Next item is the stairs project. This second group of stairs, we put out the bid, and we will be opening the bids at the end of the month on the 25th. They will then be presented for approval at the February 8th council meeting.
And just to remind us all, sorry, I like reminders, to help us keep track. That's the 4 sets of stairs. We had a bid, an RFP for 5 sets of stairs last fall, and 1 has been awarded, but the other 4 came in very, very much more expensive than anticipated. So we've retooled that, and those other 4, the 4 that are going back out to bid.
When does the construction begin on the other stairs that's been approved?
I don't know that. I'm not sure I know. Do you know?
Well,
Mirante, that's the Sal Mirante project.
yeah, not to my knowledge, but I can get that to you.
Mhm. I think I saw it was coming up where they were going to destroy the handrail and rebuild that like in a week or 2, right? Okay.
Okay, moving on to the next item is the 2024 road paving plan. Recently, we have obtained some new road surveying software called Vialytics. There has been a initial assessment done on some of the borough roads, and we have forwarded that information off to the Vialytics to have them assess and give us some initial feedback on how the performance was done. That's where we stand at this time with that. And the last item. Sorry, okay, the last item is the pool bathhouse update. And the only thing to not really mention is that it's currently on schedule.
And I just like to add,
Oh, go ahead.
I would just like to add one thing for all the council members. I did add pictures to the OneDrive today, so you can see what it looks like today. It is coming along, the floor is laid, and they're starting to build the structures on the inside. So all the plumbing is the underground plumbing is all laid, and so it's really moving along. It seems like we're in good shape, so.
Do you want to also share a little bit about the Vitalytics software that's being tested with everyone here, council members and those listening? It's we'd used a different system for our last road paving plan, our last 5-year plan. And we used robotics, and it, has been useful, but had some challenges. And we're using this new software now, and we are one of the first communities that's using it. It's been very successful elsewhere, so we got a really good deal on it. Do you want to give any other background?
I'll give a little bit of background and then I'll let Larry, he's actually tested it. We did get the initial offer was for $10,000. We were able to get him down to $5,000 actually, because they want to have people testing it here. It's a German company. They're new to the United States. But they did a much better job than Robotics in showing how it works and fixing, frankly, the problems that Robotics had. And they did it for less money. So we have that deal for 3 years. And Larry, if you want to talk about the testing or any other things that you've had with it too.
So really what this is a combination of hardware and software. And the hardware that we received is your typical iPhone that most people have. And and on the iPhone is their app, which you go into to set up and actually perform the analysis. And the phone is mounted onto the windshield. And from there, it is pointed at the road in front of you. It recognizes the road, and you simply drive around with this thing running, and it takes a collection of photos and images that are then uploaded to the company where they assess the images and then will grade the roads on a numbering system, which we will receive, and then we can determine which roads need the most attention.
And this can be done 10 times a year, 5 times a year, once a year. If there's an issue, we can go scan a road, so we can really do this anytime. It also will track assets. So if there's street signs and whatnot, they're getting to the point where they're going to be able to track that. In addition, it will measure and look at catch basins and manholes. So if they need to be replaced, it'll also let you know that they're raised or lowered or an issue. So it really gives a lot of data.
What about the brick streets, the status or the condition of the brick streets?
Well, the brick streets will be exempt from this, since
Right.
this is strictly focusing on asphalt paving roads.
The same as Robotics, we had to manually go and assess those. The software did not cover the brick streets.
That concludes the engineer's report.
All right. Thanks. All right, manager's report.
Okay, thank you. So first off, I have, we talked about at the last meeting or at the organization meeting, the reorg meeting, the updated a logo contract, and council had a few criticisms of that contract. And so I was able to work with our the artists who gave the proposal, and they added a termination agreement as recommended by Mr. Hof. And they added guidance on a description on what information we will get on how to use the logo once it's added. And they gave a descriptor of and I mentioned that termination piece. Basically, they want to be on good terms with Crafton, and they don't want to be, if you're not happy with the project, all they want is their $1,000 deposit. And then beyond that, no matter how much work they do, they just would rather have, they just cut ties, so that there's no hard feelings between two parties. So anything above and beyond that, if we don't like what they produce, we can terminate it. So they added those two things. So with that, and that is on the OneDrive. With that, I'd like to have a motion to approve the logo creation proposal in the amount of $4,875, and then have the manager move forward with the contract.
So moved.
Ms. Comptello,
Second.
Mr. Hof. Discussion or questions? All right, no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Did we want to check if Mr. Rodillo is on by chance? Just to make sure.
She's on up top. Oh, Mr. Riddell. I'm
Mr.
sorry,
Riddell.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
All right, the next item on the agenda is purchasing a skid steer. And we did correct those numbers. We had one transposed number in this one. The purchase of a new skid steer with tracks was budgeted in 2024. So with that, I'd like a motion to approve resolution 2024-01 for the purchase and financing of a 2024 Caterpillar skid steer, 289D3 HF with tracks, and trade in the 2016 John Deere skid steer for a total purchase price of $63,894.
So moved.
Mr.
Second.
Chandler. Ms. Contello, second. Any discussion or questions? This was part of the budget process. I believe we discussed a short period of time about this purchase and the trade-in during the budget workshop meetings. Any questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, on to the next item, automated invoicing and line of credit. This is something that we normally wouldn't have to bring to council or wouldn't normally bring to council, but because it involves a line of credit, we are bringing it to council, since it's essentially opening a bank account. The borough administration would like to work with Bill.com to automate the invoice processing and to open a line of credit to utilize their spend and expense cards to better manage department costs. The reason we want to use this tool is it would allow us to give a card, say, to the rec board and to Public Works, and they're able to better track what they're spending themselves so that we don't have, they take a picture of the invoice when they get it, and it's attached right to the item that they're or the item that they just purchased. And in addition, it allows us to set budgets for that. We can set a budget for, let's say, the rec board for $3,000 and they can't spend beyond that. And we can control it multiple ways. We can allow them to go over, but they get a warning and then they can only go over by $200 or whatnot. So we can really control and narrow down the spending that way. And then the invoicing portion of it is just so that that's really going to dramatically improve our efficiency in the office. We no longer will have to mail checks. They do it for us and they'll automatically set up ACHs for us. So it'll direct deposit. Overall, based on the numbers, it should cost about $3,000 a year to do this. And with that, then, so I would like a motion to approve the purchase of Bill.com's corporate accounts payable and accounts receivable plan with an estimated annual cost of $3,000 and open a line of credit using Bill.com's spend and expense plan.
So moved.
Ms. Contello,
Second.
Mr. Chandler. Questions or discussion?
Were various options explored? Was there any research done or reasons to have selected this particular service?
Yeah, we looked into several other accounting softwares like Edmunds and several others, and most of them are far more expensive. They're a whole suite of package, you get more for them, but the people I've talked to, this is enough for what we need. We already have QuickBooks, is a pretty reasonable cost, and I actually last year when we were looking into this, I talked to our auditors and I asked them how many municipalities use all these different softwares because they're able to see it because they audit everybody. And I think it was QuickBooks 180 and nobody else had more than 10. So even though some larger cities use these more advanced softwares, for an agency of our size, we don't need the more expensive softwares.
But Bill.com, is that something that other municipalities are also using? We have some, has it been tested locally?
Yeah, that's actually why that's one of the big reasons that I don't have any qualms about using it is South Fayette's been using it for 4 years. It's been incredibly effective for them. John Barrett's one of the better managers in the region. And if he's using it, it works well. That gives me a lot of faith that it'll work well for us too. And they use QuickBooks, the same setup that we have.
For the line of credit, is there an interest rate?
That is a good question. I didn't want to even apply for it until we got it approved. I think it's like a charge card, but I'll have to, where if you pay it off every month, there's no interest. I think there is interest if you let it go as a line of credit, but our goal, we'll be paying it off every month. So there will hopefully never be a credit charge since we'll pay it off. We just want to use the tool to manage payments.
Is there any concern? You mentioned having it be used by Public Works and by the rec board. Public Works are borough staff. The rec board is not. Are there any concerns about who would have access to that and how it would be used by members of the community who are perhaps not responding to any, who are not staff or reporting to anyone here?
I'm sure there's concern right now, though. What they do is they come in and get the P card and go spend it and bring back the receipts. This is a much more secure method of managing that money.
So the basis would be, instead of us getting invoices, printing checks, signing checks, mailing them out, this would be all automated where they would come in and they would be ACH'd to all of these companies.
Yeah, the way it works is when you get a bill in, an invoice, you scan it into the PDF. Their system uses AI to scan it themselves, see anything that's written on it. The first probably 100 to 200 bills will have to be hand entered and what line they go to. But over time, the AI will learn what bills go where. And automatically, when we send all of the accounts that we pay, it will automatically link them. So the difference is they will actually be paying the bills out of their checking account, and we will be transferring in an amount of money every 2 weeks to cover what they're writing checks for, or doing the ACHs. And if any of the vendors that they that we regularly pay, if they have them anywhere in their system on ACH, it'll automatically switch them to ACH. So a big number of our bills will automatically just be switched to ACH. And then the other ones, they'll show us how to incentivize getting people into ACHs. ACHs will cost us 49 cents a transaction. ACH is automatic. It's basically a bank transfer. Basically when you pay for something with your debit card, but you don't actually pay it, you're just getting it deducted every month. That's an ACH. That's an automatic payment. And so those are 49 cents. ACHs are 49 cents. Checks are $1.69 because you're actually printing and mailing something. So the more people we get on ACH, the more money we save.
And may I ask how the the bill approval process will work under this?
Sure. Now what we do is we have a process where we get a paper invoice that has a stamp on it. I sign it to approve it. Then that goes in the system. And then when the checks are actually written, John has to approve it. I have to approve it and the treasurer has to approve it. And at one point, we're all hand signing every one of these checks. Now we've gotten it at least to where John doesn't have to sign it and myself have to sign it. But nobody will have to sign checks moving forward. These will be done on an app that can be accessed on your computer or on your phone. And you'll be able to see the bill list with the invoices and you'll just approve them that way.
Very good. Thank you. Long time coming.
Any additional questions? You have a motion on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, and now on to Afton Avenue opening during the winter. It was when in the past it's been discussed whether Afton should remain closed during the winter. Afton should remain closed during the winter. Yes, sorry, I thought I said that backwards. As suggested in the Master Parks Plan, when I was asked by the chief, I think in mid-November, if we were supposed to close it. And the last I had heard, we had it in the Master Parks Plan that there was an interest in not opening it. And so we didn't open it. And now I've since received several calls from residents on that street, concerned about the safety of turning off on the Steuben and some other issues with convenience that they have when it is open. So I wanted to make sure that council had the opportunity to talk about it, and if they want it open, that's fine by me. I just didn't want to make the choice. I wasn't making the choice myself. So,
Can you give the history of why it's closed in the first place? and
Sure.
When it's closed?
yeah, so both Crafton Park is, we have on the one side, we have the pool, and the other side, we have the two ball fields and the community garden and a pavilions and a playground. And in the summer, they close those because, you know, kids and people are running across this on a regular basis. And it's well used. And the park is fairly well used even in the winter, which is why during the parks plan, there was mention and concern, ideas of keeping it closed. Then you create two dead end streets. Often people like to live on dead end streets and cul-de-sacs, and not open it during the winter. And that was the idea, was it makes the park safer to not have a roadway right through the middle of the park.
So it is closed from when to when, and where on Afton is it closed? We now
If you're
have it.
looking at that map,
Can you
it-
zoom
yep.
a little bit more?
Yep. If you're looking at the map, actually that green, where the green is almost exactly where it's open and closed. So on the one end, it closes, where you have the pointer now, it closes, actually closer to the pool. It closes right past the pool where there's a parking lot right there, right? Yeah, right where you have it. It closes right there. And on the other end, it closes where the green meets the white, right behind, right after you get past the stage part. There's a little parking lot behind the stage. Right after you pass that, it's closed on that side.
And what are the dates that it's closed?
There in the past, it was October to April, I think is when but there's no official.
Opened. It was opened October to April. And then closed April to.
No, it's open in the winter. So open
Right.
in October to April. Yeah.
Mhm. And Richmond is on the far right of the screen where you have to go.
Correct.
So those houses have no access to turn left. They have to, they have no choice but to go on Richmond. And all the other houses have no choice but to go, is that
On Duncan.
Duncan? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
So I don't have an official motion on this. I just wanted conversation. And if you want to direct me or direct the chief or the public works to open it, we can do that.
So I know this was discussed during the Parks Master Plan, and part of the reason why it was discussed was there were a lot of ideas about improving and expanding upon the park over time. Not necessarily expanding outwards, but expanding the way that it functions and how much fits within it. And closing that street would allow us to have more recreation within the park. Clearly that hasn't happened right now. So I would be a little averse to make a snap decision without giving residents some time to weigh in on this, because there was this did come up during a lengthy parks planning process. But just from what I recollect, it was more based on a long-term vision of having a more connected park with more activities within that park. And if that's really the primary driving reason, there's no reason to not allow it to be open at this time when nothing has changed in the actual layout of the park.
And I would concur with your recollection from the parks planning.
One potential concern we might want to look into before we formally take action there. It has been open in the past, so it's not a huge concern, but it's not really treated or laid out like a regular road throughout the park, and it doesn't have the same level of lighting. If we were to reopen again, we just want to make sure that it's well understood that people need to expect cars there.
Are there any issues with the construction at the pool house and any vehicles parked on that street or anything else?
No, all the vehicles that are dealing with construction are parked in front where the pretty much where the what do you call it? The ADA,
Mhm.
the handicap parking is.
Okay. So there isn't a motion. I guess it would be more of we can add a motion or we can have I don't know that we need a motion for it. It would just be a decision by council to currently the road is closed. So it'd be a decision to open the road until a certain point of time. Or not.
I would be open to, at least for now, in the short term, opening it and then having a discussion later or with residents or however we want that to look. But I would be fine with opening it for now, at least, since it's been done that way for however many years.
I would think
Agreed.
if we were to open it immediately, I would recommend that we not do it immediately, that we still give some notice to residents who are not sure whether it's open or closed to make sure it's very clear to residents if it is actually going to be open as a road or not.
I think if, honestly, most of the residents on those streets have expected it to be open. So I think if you open it and it will you have two big yellow gates that will be gone, I think they'll know. So I would say that they probably don't need notice in my opinion, but.
I mean, I would say less for the residents who live there who, yes, if it's open and they want to drive that way, they'll do so. But for people who may not live right there, but use the park and have expected that it's closed.
We can put something out on Savvy Citizen. Yeah, so everybody would get everybody in Crafton and outside of Crafton would get the notice.
Yeah.
So maybe we go through, it looks like Ms. Bolenbacher is in favor of opening it. Mr. Chandler is, and then I'll ask the rest of council.
Yeah, I agree. I think if my understanding, if it's been open previous months, winter months, why would we not? But if the ultimate plan was to have a purpose for it, when we're ready, let's have that conversation. But I think if it's been that way in the past, yes, open it. And I was gonna say, let's just make sure we put it on Savvy Citizen.
And I think too, if we're going to change something that's been the same way for however many years, I think we should at least definitely get community input from that general area, if not elsewhere.
So I'll take that as a yes.
Wait, I think, yeah, Mr. Ho.
Last year it was open, is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that as well.
Ms. Comptello, any final thoughts or? So the decision would be to open it effective immediately. And then until what date do we say?
We didn't say, the pool is where the goal is to open to have the project done at the pool on April 1st. So I would say May 1st is probably a good day, April or May, either one of those.
I think we're planning the cleanup day and the whole
yeah, the
thing on
27th.
April 27th.
So maybe do before that, maybe
Mhm.
do the 15th of April. Yep.
Okay. So open immediately and then notification on Savvy Citizen and then close on April 15th. Tax day, it will be closed. Nobody can go forward. Okay.
Won't be open until people pay their tax.
Yeah, that might not be bad. Everybody that pays their taxes can go through.
Okay, with that note, last thing on my piece of the agenda is just letting everybody know that the Congress of Neighboring Communities Connect will be coming to the February 8th council meeting to talk about what they do and some of the projects that are going on. And we have 3 people that regularly go to those meetings, Pam, Coletta, and Kirsten. So we're looking forward to it.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
All right, thank you. Next is the standing committee reports, finance, administration, sustainability.
I have nothing to report except that I'll be checking with my committee members to see whether the date and time we've been meeting is still okay, whether we'll reschedule it, but we will meet at some point this month.
Infrastructure and Land Use, Ms. Comptello.
Well, I'll start by echoing the same. The Infrastructure and Land Use Committee will also be discussing the scheduling of our regular monthly meetings. And then giving updates on when those will be occurring. In the past year, they've been second Tuesday of each month. But we'll be seeing what schedule works for this year. Updates for this committee, the multi-municipal zoning project update. This is getting into its third and final phase. We'll be scheduling a public outreach event in early February. There are flyers that are going to be going out shortly. I haven't seen those flyers. Do we have confirmed details, dates and location? Because you've seen the drafts of the flyers. Do you
Yes,
want to
and
give an
this-
update on confirmed date and location?
Yes, and this was all moving quickly. So when I drafted this agenda originally, the dates weren't on there. It is happening on February 3rd, Saturday, February 3rd at 11 a.m. And the postcard is set to go out to all 2,500 residents, 2,500 homes in early next week. Or no, I'm sorry, late next week. Thank you. Should go out by the 21st. And so everybody will have it in their mailbox about a week before the event happens. And it'll be at the communities.
We'll also have updates on that shortly on the Crafton website, the project website, which is linked on the Crafton website and on Savvy Citizen. But we're also arranging to have those printed flyers sent out to every address, so that residents are aware that we have this public engagement event coming up on February 3rd. So that'll be the opportunity to share with residents the status and details of what's some of the recommendations are that are coming out of that process, and a chance for residents to weigh in on their thoughts before that zoning code is finalized. Our target is to, with our consultant, to have them wrap it up in the spring so that it can go through its approvals process, final public review, and then approvals and a vote on it for this council to vote on it. Our funding for that needs to be expended by June. So that's our target, to have it all done, completed and wrapped up and approved by June. So please mark that date and share with anyone you think is interested. That engagement event will be February 3rd. And then next on this committee, we have received a grant to do some trail planning. We will be putting together a steering committee for that, starting soon. We do want to get past the February 3rd zoning event, just so that we're not confusing residents with multiple things going on. But we'll be looking in February to start putting together a steering committee. So residents who are interested in being a part of that can keep an eye out for an application process, or go ahead and just let us know of your interest now. But there will likely be an application process that we'll be sharing in February.
Ms. Comptello, where is the zoning project here, or zoning project meeting? Where will it be located? I know it's been in parks and different areas.
Well, I haven't seen the flyer, so I'm going to defer to the manager on how that's
the
shaping up.
community center. I did say that. Yeah,
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Planning Commission, I don't know if Mr. Rodilla has joined us.
I don't think he has, but I can update.
Yeah.
The next meeting will be, the first meeting of the year for the Planning Commission will be January 23rd. I have not talked to Mr. Rodilla, so I don't know what will be on the agenda yet. But I think it'll probably be, and I got an email from Greg today. I didn't forget about you. Just haven't responded yet. Yep, I've been busy. And that is, we might be having the, talking about the zoning update at that meeting as well.
Great. All right. Communication and Recreation, Ms. Bolenbacher.
Good evening. We'll be having a meeting this Tuesday at 6:30, but we will also be discussing if we're going to keep that date and time, because I don't think it's going to be workable for some of the people on the board. Upcoming community events. Right now, the only event that is formally scheduled is the first senior dinner of the year, and that's going to be held on Saturday, March the 3rd, with more details to come. But the rec board just had their first meeting of the year this past week, and they have laid really good ground on the events they're going to be having this year and getting things started. So more details to come. And the newsletter is on the agenda, but as of right now, I have no updates on that. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, commission vacancy, Ms. Bukownik.
Yeah, so we, the Commission Vacancy Committee is going to meet on January 31st at 5:30 to, I think similar to what others have said, just sort of map out their plan of when they want to meet, throughout the year. But we do have an appointment we'd like to make this evening, so I'm looking for a motion to appoint, Miranda McIrie, sorry, Miranda, if I'm saying that incorrectly, to Crafton's Recreation Board for a term expiring February 28th, 2025. She was interviewed prior to the holidays, so this was just kind of now the time that we were able to get this onto the agenda.
So moved.
Ms. Bollenbacher, Mr. Chandler. Discussion? Question? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
And just to, I'll say this every meeting, so everyone just get used to this one. We do have some current open positions available. Always check craftonborough.com/commissions. Currently, we have 2 alternate positions open, civil service, as well as our zoning hearing board. Those are currently available. And at this time, I believe that recreation saying 1 opening that just got filled. So the recreation board at this moment does not have any openings, which is lovely because as Ms. Bollenbacher just indicated, they're doing a lot of good things. So we will have some upcoming, there is a good amount happening throughout this year, 2024. First couple that will be expiring will be the library board. So we'll be making sure that they're aware of that. And then I know all of you have the agenda. I don't think I need to read all of them, but there are a good amount, everything from Shade Tree Commission, Planning, Civil Service, Recreation Board, and Zoning. So throughout this year, we'll be doing a good job of making sure residents know what is involved in those, making sure they know how to apply, just to make sure if anybody wants to be involved in those openings on those commissions and committees that they can be involved.
Just wanted to note too, if it comes if I remember correctly, for the library board for Tiffany and I'm blanking on Andrea. Thank you. Andrea's name. Andrea, when they came last fall, they both offered that if they would be reappointed if we'd like to reappoint them. So just so we know that that's an offer.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Bukownik. Council of Government, Ms. Bollenbacher.
Just need to report that the next meeting is next Thursday, January 18th at 6:30 in Collier Township. That's it.
Great. There was one other committee. It's an ad hoc committee. It is the Police Chief Search Committee that Ms. Perry will be leading as the mayor. And that is ad hoc due to the retirement of our police chief at the end of this year, beginning of next year. Okay. Community announcements. Our next council meeting will be Thursday, January 25th at 7 o'clock. And as Mr. Corbel had mentioned, the zoning update public engagement, I'm sorry, it's not that. The zoning update, as Ms. Compitello mentioned, is February 3rd at 11, and that's here in the community center. No other community events except potentially, of course, coming the senior dinner. Any additional comments or questions by council? Okay. At this time, citizens may address the Crafton Borough Council on any issue. Only residents and taxpayers of the Borough of Crafton will be permitted to address the council. Speakers will be permitted to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Groups of people will be required to designate a spokesperson to represent them before the council, who may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Please state your name and physical address for the record. So anybody in our audience? Okay, yeah.
Hi, Claudia Carla from 10 Afton. Thank you for opening our street because there's 2 families of Richmond that sometimes have ambulances and we can't get off. And I've had my husband had doctor's appointments out in Oakland and it was necessary at that time for him to go. And like I said, I had to drive through the park to get off our street. And that was even in the fall when, football time, whatever. But in the summertime, parents drop their kids off or they're busy talking. They do not watch their kids. And I can see it. And now the park is basically dead. Maybe one or two people use it with their kids. They park the car and play in the park with the kids, but that's about it. I'm there full time now because my job is now home base. So I can see what's going on and so thank you for opening the street. Like I said, I could tell you at one time when I was growing up, summertime, it was one way from Duncan to Richmond. In the wintertime, it was two-way. And it's easier for me to pull off on the Steuben from Duncan because I can see what's coming up and what's coming down because right now I can't see what's coming down by the post office and sometimes the road's icy there. Sometimes you just, all that with the intersections is just very hard to pull off. And I really appreciate you guys opening the street again. And like I said, maybe like December through end of April or somewhere be wonderful. So I appreciate you guys opening it. Thank you.
All right. Ben or Greg? No, okay. And anybody online, you may raise your hand on Zoom. Okay, with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. We will have executive session, of course, at this time. Are you going to stay here?